elections in the country he was referring to went to the highest bidder. I don't think there was any exception here in St. Kitts and Nevis. You're on the ground in St. Kitts. You must have heard all the stories. As I said, it ended up in a landslide, and so that is one for the history books. But anyone who would venture to say that elections here were not fraught with irregularities, the electoral offices being closed in the lead up to the election. Here in Nevis, for instance, as I said when I last appeared, there was a lot of pandering to persons from other islands, in particular the people from the Dominican Republic. In 2017, for instance, I could see in my mind's eye right now an invitation to the Spanish community. It said in Spanish, free food, free drink, and at the bottom, free St. Kitts and Nevis passports. The subliminal message is that if you vote for the CCM, then you could get your citizenship. Here in the heart of Mark Brantley's constituency, St. John's, there was set up a Spanish hideaway in a place called Fig Tree Lane. And it's truly a lane. Most Nevisians wouldn't even know that there are houses there. And for the last 3 nights, the Spanish community was entertained there. They had food, they had drink, and deals were consummated.
Are you referring to this election?
This election, the 3 days leading up to the elections here in Nevis, yes, that actually happened at an outpost in Fig Tree Lane in the heart of St. John's, the constituency occupied by Premier Mark Brantley.
And that was an irregularity?
That people were dined, wined, and bribes consummated? What do you think?
They might just have been having a party.
Well, that is very, very possible. One gentleman from St. Thomas's Parish, Cotton Ground, to be exact, called me virtually in tears on Tuesday morning. He's 50-odd years of age. His father is nearing 80. And he said there had never been a conflict between those two. And he said that on election day, his father could not eyeball him because he was given $5,000 not to vote, was asked to go into Charlestown, away from St. Thomas's Parish. And so his father had a very difficult time leveling with him. No one can tell you that there was not bribery in this election and that many of the votes went to the highest bidder.
Well, we have in St. Kitts, we have the opposition, St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party. They have suggested there were irregularities, but I guess we have to wait to see if those things actually go to the court, because that is what you can get to go and make your claim and see if it is ruled correct or not. We have to wait and see what is happening. We know the former government minister, Patches Library, wasn't happy with the result in constituency number 1, and he says he's taking the matter to court. I guess those things we have to wait and see how they pan out and what happens.
I personally feel that the result is sealed and delivered. The challenges will go to naught. The election was consummately executed, and a landslide suggests there will be no reversal. Okay,
so how do you see Team Unity moving forward?
Well, there are certain things which have taken me aback in terms of the allocation of ministries. First of all, agriculture and being lost to Mr. Hamilton. That is no surprise to me at all. I think your radio station and certainly Freedom have entertained farmers and people from several divisions or departments within agriculture in Nevis. It appears to me that Hamilton was a failed minister of agriculture. He was not served well by his technocrats. He himself admitted to a decrease in food production. There was mass loss of livestock because of the absence of Betical and other issues. We heard stories of predial larceny. Even close to the election, one farmer came on saying how his tractor and other implements were burnt. I think there was a general unhappiness among the farming community in St. Kitts. So there was no surprise that he lost the Ministry of Agriculture. Health, he was always a goner. He was missing in action during COVID. Now, which batsman, Viv Richards, Clive Lloyd, Brian Lara, wouldn't want to be at the heart of things when the West Indies needed showmanship? And no amount of explanation that, of course, he had many ministries and that Wendy Phipps was an able replacement could wipe that away. He was a failed health minister as well.
And yet the people voted him back in.
Well, we'll get to that. But by a very decreased majority, he won by over 200 and odd votes, close to 240 votes, I think. This time it was whittled down to 24. And I listened to Douglas Watley last night. He was saying that the Spanish community was the one, not the Spanish community, the Jamaican community, which helped him over the hump. But Wendy Phipps was highly applauded as a Minister of Health, or the substantive Minister of Health dealing with COVID. But she too is gone. Something is absolutely not correct there.
When you say she's gone, what do you mean? She is the Minister for International Trade, I think it is. She's still a senator, and she's the Minister for International Trade, yeah.
Yeah, I understand all of that, but COVID is not over. The war is still on, or maybe it's over once the election is over. But we have been talking about the second wave, but yet we have a total newbie in Akila Byron Nisbet being brought into the health ministry. Something does not add up there. Maybe
but Steve, it is a new government. Naturally you might have changes. You might have people shuffled around. That is natural. That is normal.
Yeah, but COVID, as I said, is not over, and Wendy Phipps, I believe, has a job to do. Something is not quite right there. What might be happening, Ken, is that she's been given a powerful ministry with the thought of building a brand new Joseph N. France General Hospital, which, if completed, would be a feather and a cap wages to you. The Akila Byron is being set up by Prime Minister T. Harris to become the first female Prime Minister of St. Kitts, if he demits office after 5 years. So Sean Richards shows not much of an interest in being a leader. And so I think this is a pivot to ensure that Akila Nisbet is well placed to continue the PLP legacy and become the country's first female Prime Minister.
What if I tell you this sounds like wild speculation? But hold that thought, because we're going to take a few messages and we'll be back.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
Quicks, 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 quicks. Quicks cleans many, 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 many dishes and many, 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 many more.
Quicks cleans many, 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 many dishes and many, 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 many more.
Yes, Quicks cleans many, 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 many dishes and many, 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 many more.
Just one spoonful of concentrated Quicks cleans your whole sink full of dishes. Quicks, 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 clean.
Quicks cleans many, 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 many dishes and many, 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 many more.
Quicks, we wash more dishes.
Like us on Facebook, www.facebook.com/ramsupermarket. Follow us on Twitter, www.twitter.com/ramsupermarket. And subscribe to us on YouTube, www.youtube.com/ramsupermarket.
Flow helps you stay connected to what matters. Simple plans and a better network mean that you can enjoy 30 days of unlimited social messaging, 10 gigabytes of reliable data to use as you like, and 1,000 local anywhere calls and texts. With the always-on prepaid plan, all for $100. Keep your number when you switch to St. Kitts' most reliable LTE network. Switch to Flow. It only gets better.
Okay, welcome back to Voices. We have our guest, Steve Manners, journalist. Steve, I just interrupted you a while ago, so if you want to pick up from where you left off.
Yeah, well, you did say it's a new dispensation and that changes could be made. I know the reasoning would be to give people more experience and exposure to different ministries. Now we move to culture. I think Sean Richards was always going to be a goner because the carnival has shown a marked decline and there were too many disaffected stakeholders. But it is surprising to me that education was taken away from him. I could only surmise that after 6 years of agitation and not a block being laid at the Bastia High School, that there is dissatisfaction with the way that project was handled. John L. Powell, in an interview with ZIZ after the inauguration on Sunday, said that he was surprised that it came to him. And I think everybody would be surprised as well. Because here you have a major project. He said that they erred on the side of caution. I believe there's going to be another pivot here as well. I think giving it to John L. is an opportunity to play for time, and I want to wager that the new Bastia High School will not be built on the aquifer, but they'll find a way to go back to the old site just above Warner Park. So I think there is a lot of things happening here. Also with education moving away from Sean Richards, we've got virtual learning going on amidst COVID, and I got a sense talking to teachers, people in education here, that it's not going all that well. And I think there's going to be a fallout. We know that there was a one-to-one laptop program 5 years ago, which was taken away. Much was made about new devices being brought in. But I don't think that the virtual learning is living up to the expectations. And
Do you expect that the kids might be back in school shortly? We don't know when, but it is likely to happen at some stage.
Yeah, not a clue on when that is likely to happen. So education, again, is up in the air on many fronts. Understandably, Sean has moved to take over the ministries previously held by Ian Patches-Libert. There was a vacuum there. The other thing which is a little worrying is that adding to his many, many portfolios, the Prime Minister has taken on the information portfolio. That, to me, bearing what we have said about the way he has handled power and the way he has dealt with our democracy, may not be in the country's best interests. We know the ZIZ case, for instance. I would have rather seen information go to one of the young bucks who understand more the importance of information in a democracy. So those are some of the things which jumped out at me when I saw the way that the cabinet portfolios were aligned.
In terms of how they're going to perform, you don't think they will perform well this time around? They will say they did a fairly good job last time around.
Well, and the electorate said that, and the proof of the pudding will be leading. I'm not putting any doubts on any minister at all. I'm just saying that those things jumped out at me instantly when the portfolios were aligned.
But like you, some other people look at especially the younger candidates who are now ministers, and knowing they don't have the kind of experience that others have, people are a little bit surprised that they got those portfolios. For example, as you mentioned, Akila, health, and John L. Powell, education. They might just surprise us all.
Well, we hope so. For the advancement of the nation, that's the hope. And we're only 2 weeks in, so we're looking on keenly.
Okay, we have some other issues to look at with you as well. I'm hoping we'll have time. I want to ask you about the geothermal project. Where is it at the moment? Tourism, farmers and fishermen, how they're doing. I want to mention too the Christina disaster monument that you guys have been working on. But let's take some messages again, and then we'll be back.
Found the sound 98.9 Win FM.
Flo's new combo plan, the people's plan.
Combo plan. You can call anyone, no matter which network you dey on. Just use your Flow.
I want a combo, but not for my belly. I feel me cell phone, so me call anybody. Call Mr. Man, call Granny. On the island, Flow, come me.
Yes, there is no need for two phones no more. Cause with Flow combo plan, you're paying less for more. Flow got a new combo plan. You can call anyone, no matter which network you dey on. Just use your Flow.
Dial star 129 number sign to activate your combo plan today.
Welcome back to Voices, and of course we have Steve Manners with us. Steve, I need you to stay on the line now because we're trying to reach Keith Scarborough, this and that, and I think we already have him. Hi, Keith.
Good morning, Ken.
Hi, good morning. We're looking for from you a bit of a look back at the elections, what you think, and I'm wondering if you heard some of what Steve had to say and if you can comment as well.
Yes. I listened to my good friend Steve, and if you want an opposing voice, then Steve is the right man to call. We have long known Steve as a prophet of gloom and doom when it comes to politics, so I was not too surprised with his comments. In terms of the elections, we ran a very good elections here in Nevis, the Concerned Citizens Movement Party. Ran a very good elections here in Nevis, and as a result of what we achieved between 2015 and 2020, we were able to go back to the people based on our record, and the people reward us nicely with the full 3 seats. In St. Kitts, of course, our Team Unity brothers and sisters on the other side did a marvelous job as well, and they too campaigned wonderfully and spread the message of their good record, and the people responded positively. It's quite apparent to me that those on the other side who was begging for an election for months, when that election was eventually called, they clearly were not prepared for an election. Clearly they were not prepared. And you would have seen them going to court on about 4 occasions and lost all 4 cases, basically. I mean, let me say they were thrown out, all 4 the cases that they brought. But once you see a party starts going to court, a party starts complaining about everything, you know that party is not prepared. And that is why the opposition lost the election so badly. One, that the record of the Team Unity administration, both in St. Kitts and Nevis, was exceptional over the last 5 years. And of course, because the opposition itself was not prepared for an election, despite all the noise they were making.
Okay, I'm hoping you two can have a bit of a discussion. Steve, the man called you a prophet of doom and gloom.
You're breaking up. I didn't hear you. Say that again.
I was saying I'm hoping you and Steve can actually have a tete-a-tete, a dialogue in terms of.
Oh, we get along very good. I mean, normally argue the politics, but Steve is always on the opposing side. I mean, he doesn't say anything positive at all.
Well, Steve, can you respond, Steve, to the accusation?
No, I really don't see any need for. Listen, that is a respected Calypsonian, the winningest Calypsonian in Nevis. But I really see no need for the tete-a-tete. That will really get us nowhere. What we're trying to do here is roll out the things as we see them. He will have his view, and I have my view.
But you describe him as a Calypsonian, which he is, but you have to say also that he's a budding politician. You have to acknowledge that.
Well, budding. He's one. He is a four-time candidate who lost most recently to Cleone Stapleton Simmons. If the performance had been so great, how come a newcomer beat him so soundly?
Keith?
Well, what Steve has said to you, or failed to say to you, that seat has been an NRP seat for the last 90 years. Nobody has ever won it. So you make it sound as if, I lost a seat or I did the best, apart from Alexis, who did so well this last election. I, of all the candidates of the Concerned Citizens Movement, did the best in St. Thomas's over the years. Yes, I didn't win it simply because, for one, we didn't really put in any resources in that by-election. Two, our supporters didn't go out for whatever reason. They thought, well, CCM was already in power with 4-1, so they didn't see the need to go out. And basically, we didn't do as good as we should in the by-election. But it was an NRP seat that they always win for the past 90 years. So I didn't lose anything. I was chipping away bit by bit at the seat. And eventually, my good friend Alexis Jeffers did wonderfully well in the just concluded federal elections, to the point where he has won the electoral seat in the federal election.
Steve, you were saying something?
No, I'm asking Keith, how did you turn it around in the last 3 months? You work magic?
No. It's a total different election. This one was a federal election. And this one, the good people of St. Thomas's know that Patrice was not a good candidate for the people of Nevis. He never was. And they would have had enough. And then the record of the Team Unity administration over the last 5 years was so outstanding that the good people of St. Thomas's had no choice but to vote for Alexis Jeffers in their numbers. He didn't win the St. Thomas's area, but he did well enough to take him over the top at the federal level. Totally different election.
Steve?
Your Premier, Mark, and Leader Mark Brantley has said constantly that he's not happy with the way the Charlestown Accord has turned out. He said that we got financing in drips and jabs. There's nowhere near where what we anticipated. The $300 million lump sum has not been paid. Are you saying to me that all was fine within Team Unity?
Oh, no. Well, I'll tell you plain, we didn't get enough. But I am not looking at that fact at this point. We got more than we ever did at any time in the history of politics between St. Kitts and Nevis. And that has not gone past me. I recognize that we could have got more, but it was the best we had ever gotten. And the evidence is on the ground to show what we have gotten. And then, most importantly, that relationship between St. Kitts and Nevis that was terrible for all the years I've known myself, that went out the window in the Team Unity administration in 2015. We are now, for the first time, really and truly living as brothers and sisters in St. Kitts and Nevis. That is a hell of an achievement, knowing what used to happen prior to 2015.
Well, there is still a...
Can you confirm or deny that since that statement of May 2018 in Tabernacle, that none of them can hold a candle of correction to me, that the relationship within Team Unity soured to a great degree, which in fact the Premier of Nevis went to Barbados and from a distance gave the clear signal that he intended to be the kingmaker in this election. All three for we were supposed to give greater leverage to the CCM in NRP to unseat Prime Minister Timothy Harris. Could you explain why Mark Brantley on Sunday after the election was not at his side at Government House?
Steve, you're really a prophet of gloom and doom. I mean, you just see things so negative, it is not funny. You concoct your own story and bring it across as if it is true. There's no such truth to what you just said. Absolutely none. None at all.
Let me see if I can clear. Steve. Hi, Steve. Let me see if I can clear the air a little. Keith keeps on calling you a prophet of doom. Do you only focus on negative things? Is that correct? Is that really true?
Well, the people of St. Kitts and Nevis should decide that. They've seen my work.
And you're balanced, you're saying?
I know I am.
Okay. Well,
sometimes too brutally honest for some people.
Okay, let's move on a little because time is moving on. I just wanted to bring in the issue of the double salary thing because you now have 3 ministers in Nevis who are also 3 ministers in the federal government, and I know some people have been annoyed in terms of that double salary thing. Steve, you go ahead first.
Well, here, Clive, Ken, and I'm calling you Clive all morning.
That's fine. Don't worry about it.
I want to give you an assignment. I'm not your boss, but I want to give you an assignment.
Go right ahead, man.
That has been an argument and a debate for 5 years. Most recently, during the campaign, Dr. Kelvin Daly appeared on Vaughan Radio. I think it was a Wednesday night. And the double salary issue was brought up. And Mark Brantley called in promptly to deny that they were the first to take double salaries in 2015. And former Premier Joseph Parry called in as well and sought to set the record straight. And he said that Kennedy Simmons, Ewell Swanston, Richard Kane are still alive today. So here's what you can do, Clive. I had an interview with Kennedy Simmons re the Christina disaster just before the borders closed. He's such a charming man. And I don't think we've benefited enough from him post his prime ministership. So I think you need to call him and have him settle the score on that. What has happened over the years in terms of pay for persons who were both in the federal cabinet and in the local cabinet? And while you're at it, you could also ask him if in framing the Constitution it was ever contemplated that the person sitting as Premier would want to be Prime Minister at the same time. And thirdly, I think during this election, another constitutional crisis, just like 1993, was averted. You need to ask him what changes he envisaged to be made to the Constitution to perfect our union. Those are things which I think you should ask of him, and I'm sure that he would oblige, and the nation would be happy for his responses.
Okay, quick interjection there. Your assignment carries an assumption. We've tried to speak to Dr. Kennedy Simmons several times, and his position was no. I don't want to do that. So I am very happy that you were able to get him. I would say continue doing that good work.
Yeah, but you can keep trying as well. It was a difficult interview to get, but he acquiesced in the end, and he was very, very accommodating.
And I'm very glad you got it. But let's hear Keith on the double salary thing.
Well, Ken, there's absolutely no law against it. None. 2, the NRP would have run their candidates for decades in the federal elections. At no time did they say if they win, they would not have taken that federal salary. At no time. But all of a sudden, the Honorable Mark Brantley became a member of the federal cabinet, and all of a sudden this becomes an issue to the opposition. And remember, it's just the opposition. It is just the opposition who seems to have a problem with it. But let me ask you this, Ken. If I am your lawyer and charge you $2,000 to do a job, are you telling me if I am Steve Lawyer, I should be charging $2,000 as well?
I'm not sure that equates with the other one. But there are some people.
Because he's
just hold on 1 second.
Nevis,
just hold on 1 second, please. There are some people. Keith, just 1 second.
As a federal minister, he does his work equally, and he's paid for that as well. It's not against any law. It's in the Constitution. The Prime Minister is the one who will ensure that his cabinet colleagues are paid. He has no problem with it. I don't know why this has become a problem.
Okay,
I don't even think.
Can I just ask you something? Can I just ask you something?
Actually,
just let me ask you a little question. There are some people who admit, they acknowledge that it is not illegal, that it is part of the laws of the country.
Some are calling
But
unethical.
but they suggest that morally they have a bit of a problem with it, and some people suggest as well that while yes, you can be holding 2 ministerial posts in the federation, it won't be likely that you can work at your maximum. What do you say about those things?
Why not? It is a 24-hour job. There are those who seem to think that it's an 8-hour job. No minister of government has an 8-hour job. It's a 24-hour job. And once you proceed, I mean, the Honorable Mark Brantley did such a wonderful job as Foreign Affairs Minister that he was given it again. He was given the same portfolio again because he did such a wonderful job.
Might his premiership has suffered? Might his premiership has suffered as a result?
Oh, no. It has been enhanced, actually. It has been enhanced because as Foreign Affairs Minister and Aviation Minister, he's able to do a number of things that impacts Nevis as well.
Steve, do you agree?
Now, Ken, clearly you listened to Premier Mark Brantley's On the Mark show last night. And I'm going to ask you if he shared this bit of information with the public. The thing is that the Nevis economy is in dire shape. And we've said before this election that this election was a fight for the soul of the NIA. 3/4 of the ministers have gone to St. Kitts to work. And yes, they're getting double salaries. But what's happening on the ground here? To me, that is tantamount of a surgeon leaving the intensive care unit or the operation room with a patient almost comatose, nearing death. Now, take Nevis, for instance, and I asked you about last night's program and whether the Premier told his audience that there was a meeting held yesterday at the second largest hotel on Nevis, the Nisbet Plantation Inn. The Labor Department was there. The owner of the hotel, David Dodwell, joined by Skype. And that it was announced that as of November 1st, the hotel would reopen. The hotel employs 75 persons. All persons in attendance applied forthwith for severance pay. These are some of the issues which are unfolding on Nevis and will continue to unfold. While there's argument about double salary, 100 plus persons were laid off at Brownhill Communication last year. We've heard no word about a replacement. And I shudder to think that when the Four Seasons acts, what will happen? And I frankly believe that action will come before the end of this month. Workers are down to 60% of their pay. But of course, we're into the hurricane season. We're into July, August, September, normally the slow months. We don't know if that can be sustained. So whereas the ministers should be putting their noses down and ensuring that this sick economy, the Premier himself has said that the Nevis economy has been all but destroyed. So Keith needs to tell us where the Foreign Affairs job has brought benefits to Nevis. Because the bane of Mark Brantley is that he has done such a fantastic job improving the diplomatic footprint, making our passports the most valuable, but the monies are not coming up. The Mondo track has been languishing for 3 years. It was supposed to be a world-class facility. The hospital auxiliary project has been limping along. And a federal structure, the police station at Newcastle, has been ongoing for 3 years and can't near completion. Nevis needs at this time special attention. And so saying how wonderfully the alliance has been, well, why didn't they renew the pre-marriage, prenuptial arrangements? That didn't happen either. The Four Seasons, not the Four Seasons Accord, but the Charlestown Accord didn't feature at all in this past election.
Well, we don't know what its status is, and I'm sure Keith is going to respond to what you just said. But just before you do, Keith, I would have thought that, Steve, you might have mentioned that the Premier gave up his Nevis salary as part of the whole COVID activity and thrust.
You see, and Steve is quite aware of this as well, but, Steve just cannot bring himself to speak of success stories. He can't do it. He's against his being,
Yeah, but he made some claims and allegations there that you need to respond to. So let's hear you.
I didn't get that.
I'm saying he made some claims and allegations there that you need to respond to.
Yes, he said, well, it's clearly the COVID-19 has brought the economy to almost a halt. We are all aware of that. We both think it's a need because tourism is our biggest revenue earner. There's no doubt about that. And once you close the border, it means that you're bringing the tourism sector to a halt. But that doesn't mean that Nevis is shut off, that nothing is happening. The rest of the economy is going, the rest of Nevis is going nicely. And yes, like I said, we would have lost a lot of money because of the COVID. But Steve, listening to my good friend Steve, it makes you feel as though the Premier and his cabinet has absolutely nothing to do with Nevis. They get up every morning and just travel across the St. Kitts and sit down at the desk down there. Nothing of the sort. Nevis is still being governed nicely with its limited resources because of COVID-19, of course. But we will get through this. We will get through this. The hotels have taken a beating, and we are well aware of that. And but like I said, we are going to get through. We are going to survive with our own administration here in Nevis. And the people of Nevis knows what is happening in terms of the COVID-19. And 2 weeks ago, they voted overwhelmingly for the Concerned Citizens Movement Party, knowing the situation. But Steve will give you the impression that all hell has broken loose here in Nevis, which is not true.
Well, you guys are looking at the situation from different perspectives, and everybody has.
Well, one is positive and one is absolutely negative. That's the difference.
Okay, Steve, let me just ask you. Premier Brantley said. Hi, Steve, are you with us? Okay. Okay, you with us, Keith? Are you still with us?
Yes,
Keith?
I'm still here.
Okay, I think we seem to have lost Keith. But I was about to ask him, Premier Brantley said on the MAC last night that he wants to see Nevis expanding agriculture as well as export. How much of a move in the right direction is this?
Well, that's very much the order of the day. I mean, we have seen what the COVID would have done, in terms of if boats stopped coming with the food, we would have been in serious trouble. So this COVID has opened our eyes very wide that we need to invest heavily in agriculture. And I'm extremely pleased that the Honorable Alexis Jeffers would have gotten the portfolio of agriculture, fisheries, and marine services, because that will be able to dovetail into what he's doing here in Nevis and assist us tremendously in developing the agriculture produce here in Nevis. It is something that we have to go into on a full-time basis in a major way. So I think that that agriculture is going to become a big player in the Nevis economy over the next few years.
Okay, here's something I am sure both Steve Manners and you would agree on. They thrust to try to have in place a monument, a Christina disaster monument. I'm sure that's something you support as well, right?
Sure. Of course. My brother actually was on it.
Did he survive?
Yes, he did. He did.
Praise the Lord. But yes, how far is that at the moment? Do you have any idea?
Well, I am not aware of. Steve will be more.
Yes, I know Steve is working on that. I know he is working on that.
Every year we have that memorial service to honor our fallen brothers and sisters, and that has been going from strength to strength, and we look forward to it each year.
Right. Yes. Okay. Well, let me see just before you go, because we have to stop for the news at 12 o'clock. In terms of how well the fishermen are doing, how well the farmers are doing in Nevis, can you put that in perspective? Hi, Keith. Okay, we're trying to get Steve back, and I think we've lost Keith now. I hope the telephone is not compromised. Let me just open the lines. We don't have a lot of time, but if you have a view and you want to call in, please do so now. Of course. And we'll take a break at the moment.
WINN is 98.9. 98.9 is Win FM.
Flow helps you stay connected to what matters. Simple plans and a better network mean that you can enjoy 30 days of unlimited social messaging, 10 gigabytes of reliable data to use as you like, and 1,000 local anywhere calls and texts with the always-on prepaid plan, all for $100. Keep your number when you switch to St. Kitts' most reliable LTE network. Switch to Flow. It only gets better.
Pour it up, meet the thirst quencher in my cup. If you have one, hold it up and say, pass the brother colors in my life. Refreshing and nice, and I drink that what we like. Must stand you full of vibes, living full color. I know black and white, we do what we like. We live to enjoy life. Buster, pour it up, different flavor. Load it up. If you have one, hold it up and say, pass the brother colors in my life.
Well, we're back, and we have about 8 minutes before we go through the news. So I think we have Steve and Keith back. Are you guys there? Hi, Steve.
I missed out a good chunk of it there.
Okay. We will go into the Christina disaster monument, and I was asking what stage is that project at the moment?
Well, naturally, we were slowed by COVID. Of course, shortly after the borders were closed, it was announced that Culturama 2020 will be no more. And we were going to piggyback on that. We know of several family reunions that were planned for the August 1st weekend, but we're not quite sure what's happening there. What is for sure is that we have attracted funding from the SIDF. So we've got...
Hi, Steve. Okay, I think he's fallen out again. Yeah, we seem to be having technical problems. Keith, are you there? Hi, Keith. Okay, we seem to be having. We do have a caller though. Hi, caller.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Go right ahead, please. Bear in mind we have limited time because the news is coming.
No, the total lack of objectivity of Mr. Manners' presentation. He said he's a media worker. It is amazing. Look at the choice of words. Instead of move, they lose, you know. You can't have proper thing like that. If I spoke about the role of the media, you know, and it is quite obvious that some media personnel have place themselves within party camps. And whatever they say is clouded by their allegiance to a party. Now, everybody trying to put the minister into their quarrel. As Manner said, if they said the highest bidder got the vote, it means, therefore, that all of the parties were offering bribes. So you can't come out and accuse one side if all of them are doing it. That cannot be a reasonable contention.
Well, that is a claim, Ms. Henry, but it's not a claim that we can...
Anna's made that claim.
It's not a claim that we have evidence to say, yes, it actually happened, or no, it didn't happen. We hear people talking about it.
Why are you all trying to put the minister into politics?
We hear people talking about irregularities and allegations. But that is being said. Ms. Henry, can I speak, please? Hi, Ms. Henry, can I speak?
Yes, you may.
All right, thank you. The point is people will make claims. I mean, the best way to look at that issue and try to rectify it, whether it's correct or wrong. If you have evidence, you take it to the court and the court can deal with it.
Well, you can't take it to the court if you yourself engage in it. It just does not make sense. You're going to say, oh, I am a thief, so come to me an next thief.
No, you have two political parties that contested. Well, a coalition and two other political parties who were involved in the elections. If they're not happy, if they think there were irregularities, they have a right, if they have the evidence, to go to the court with it.
They're sore losers. That is all. I feel their pain because, you see, they made predictions that they were going to win overwhelmingly. They crushed. Now, all of a sudden, all kind of flippant excuses and charges.
Okay, so who are the sore leaders, Miss Henry?
Hello?
Who are the sore leaders? Losers?
Mr. Manners is one.
Who are the sore losers?
Maybe you.
Who I contested the election, you saying?
You asked me the questions, you know. So you must be prepared for the answers.
No, I'm asking you a serious question. Who are the sore losers?
Those who lost.
Ah, okay. Including opposition and Team Unity?
I said those who lost. That is English, you know. You can't go around me.
You have a bit of difficulty answering, Miss Henry. You have any other point to make? You have any other point to make?
Anyway, you lost too, you know. I know you lost, so I feel your pain.
You have any other point to make?
Yes, my point is this. In terms, I'm a Christian. You all stop trying to get the minister name embroiled in your all confusion.
Which minister are you referring to?
The one that you played and said, the minister said that bribery. The minister is a man of God. He never accused any party.
Oh, you're referring to the pastor. You're referring to the pastor.
Huh?
You're referring to the pastor.
Yes.
I didn't realize. I thought you were actually talking about a government minister.
I'm not talking about you. Anyway, enjoy the rest of the day, right?
Thanks, Ms. Henry. Thanks for calling. I feel your
pain and I feel Mr. Manners' pain.
Thanks for calling. Do feel free to call again. Okay, it's just about 2 minutes to. Do we have any other caller? I think we'll take an early break and go to the news at this time. Thank you very much.
You found the sound. 98.9. Win FM.
We now bring you the Win FM Headline News. The Win FM Headline News is brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, KDP Enterprises, The Grange, Carib Brewery, CNC Trading.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts, offering 24-hour nursing, therapeutic, and residential care for older adults? It's situated at Otley, 7 miles east of Vastair in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodation to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020, fax 466-8221, or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com, or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
Protect your lifestyle with Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Tilly Wall with a low reputation and service for second to none. Securing you is our mission. People that you can trust, your business, property, we got you covered. Motor or personal, whatever it is, we got you covered. 130 years in this business, we've got you covered. For all your insurance needs, visit or call us at 465-2631 or 469-5303. Delia Walwyn, people you can trust.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Without limits, happy and free. The skin you're in with no apology. The one to seize the day. Grab an LLB. Live, love, be. With LLB. Live, love, be. Live, love, be. Be who you know you can be. Grab an LLB. Live, love, be. Angostura, lemon, lime, and bitters. Live, love, be.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your goods anywhere in the world. Whether your shipment is fresh, frozen, large or small, alive or hazardous, you can count on Amerijet to deliver it safe and sound. Amerijet International, by land, sea or air. We get it there. For more information, visit us online at www.amerijet.com or call us at KDP Enterprises, telephone number 466-9595.
In the age of COVID-19, the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States is proposing a number of new legislation to assist with the movement of produce and people. Director General of the OECS, Didacus Jules, pointed to the harmonized legislation for faster trade of agriculture and people.
Just as COVID has forced on us the use of online modalities of learning in education, so too does it necessitate the fast tracking of all protocols, processes, and measures needed to make free trade and free movement of people a seamless reality and a present-day urgency. That is why, for example, we have produced, in consultation with the relevant ministries, a full suite of harmonized legislation and regulations to facilitate easier, faster trade, especially in agricultural products, in support of our food security agenda. They now await urgent adoption by the cabinets of our governments.
New chairman of the OECS authority, Dominica's Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit, noted that inequality will remove gains made before the pandemic, and as such, changing the way nations adapt to the pandemic is critical.
If there's anything that we should learn from this pandemic, it is that inequality and inefficiency are the corrosive ingredients that will erase quicker the significant gains we have made in the modern era. But moments like these moments, as difficult and challenging as they are, also provide us with an opportunity to temper a culture that must now find new meaning through the reconnection to old ideals. Indeed, we must pursue an economic construct which responds to community and to conscience. Colleagues, friends, the stakes are high, for if we do not rise to the moment, we would lose a generation and even more. Immediately before us is this dual challenge of how to keep our people safe, even as we seek to reopen our sectors of our economy, and particularly right now, the reopening of our borders.
He urged member states to work together ahead of the reopening of the borders in the region.
As we all seek to reopen our borders, there is the urgent need for close coordination among our countries, working in collaboration with our international partners. We need to think through clearly on the required protocols, and as far as possible, get uniformity in the region. To do otherwise, I believe, will be to our disadvantage. Any lack of clarity will insert uncertainty in the marketplace. In the absence of a vaccine, for example, for COVID-19, the need for testing is indeed the crucial element. We have seen that airlines, understandably perhaps, have shown no appetite to take on that burden at the source for visitors seeking to come to our shores. As it stands now, going into this period, we will have variance on exactly what steps should be taken once both our nationals and visitors arrive. Maybe it is an area that calls for more thought and more dialogue, while understanding there is certain urgency to all of this. Whatever we do, we must be mindful not to undermine the good work this region has done over the last 3 months in containing the virus.
Outgoing chairman of the authority, Antigua and Barbuda's Prime Minister Gaston Browne noted that despite the effects the COVID-19 virus is having on the region, it presents an opportunity for upward mobility.
And I'd say that as devastating as this has been to all humanity, it has nevertheless opened the door of unprecedented opportunities for the region. And our challenge now is to be nimble enough to capitalize on those opportunities as they present themselves. I'll say here, though, definitively that this is not a time for us to cower. This is not a time for us to buckle. This is a time for us to hold hands tighter and move forward with resolution to embrace the transformational opportunities that the crisis presents. From the emergence of the pandemic, we acted decisively and with a strong degree of cohesion, and today we are all better for it. In fact, the OECS today is considered as one of the most successful regions in the world in terms of its success in containing COVID. And this success was not due because of any superior resource endowment. It was primarily as a consequence of our competence and our commitment to protect our people.
Browne, Skerritt and Jules were all speaking at the opening of the 69th meeting of the OECS Authority Thursday.
Premier and Federal Foreign Affairs Minister Mark Brantley is commenting on the election feat in which all three Concerned Citizens Movement Nevis candidates were elected in the June 5 general elections. Along with the Premier, Eric Evelyn and Alexis Jeffers are not only members of the House of Assembly in Bastille, but also government ministers in the Team Unity administration.
Not, I think, has it been since sometime 1984, I believe, has one party won all of the federal seats. And the only person to have done so in the past in Nevis was none other than the Right Excellent and Right Honourable Dr. Sir Simeon Daniel, our national hero. I felt very pleased and humbled to be in that company because I have now been able to build on the foundation of the CCM and to take us to that historic feat as well. And I'm very grateful to the people of Nevis for that confidence they've reposed in me. I like to say of our team that we're old enough to know and still yet young enough to do. And I believe that our people have confidence in us, and they've demonstrated that confidence time and time again.
Looking back on the Nevis part of the elections, Premier Brantley said he was pleased that the voting there went smoothly.
Let us now bind ourselves together. The elections are over. The people have spoken and spoken convincingly. I am particularly pleased, as I commented to someone today, that certainly there have been no allegations of irregularities or impropriety. The election has come and gone in Nevis almost as if people didn't notice. And that is as it should be. There's been no acrimony. We contested, we debated the ideas, and the personalities and the character and the record, and at the end of the day the people voted, and we are moving on. Let us now move on, St. Kitts and Nevis, and seek as a country to do the very best that we can. There are some difficult days ahead of us. We have to make some difficult decisions in this new era of COVID, and we have to grapple with some serious issues, our hotel sector, our tourism sector generally, cruise ship sector, our issue of continuing to bolster our healthcare capacity, the issue, of course, of the reopening of our borders, the issue of our nationals, many of whom have been trapped abroad and want to come home, and how can we manage that process while still keeping our people safe.
In relation to Nevis in particular, the Premier indicated that expanding local food production and export, along with tackling environmental issues, would be among the priorities. Brantley was speaking on his Vaughan radio program, On the Mark.
Addressing the water woes facing the farming community in St. Kitts and Nevis is one of several priority areas for new Minister of Agriculture Alexis Jeffers. Farmers in the Federation, like others in the region, are facing challenges in accessing water to properly cultivate crops. It was just recently that the Director of Agriculture, Melvin James, outlined that his department was in the process of drafting a water policy for submission for consideration to Cabinet. James, during a recent WinFM interview, spoke to some of the challenges farmers are currently facing with the water shortage. Minister Jeffers tells WinFM that the only way the issue can be resolved is through a collaborative effort amongst the Ministries of Agriculture and Water.
Well, I believe we have to work hand in hand with the Ministry of Communications and Works in terms of finding the necessary water sources on the island of St. Kitts, as we have done in Nevis as well, because I believe there is some plans afoot to do some drilling, or it has been done, but it's a matter of developing those wells so that we can provide adequate water to our farmers. Now, storage is important as well too. Over here on the island of Nevis, we have just erected a 200,000 gallon storage tank down there in New River. So we have been moving ahead with some plans here on Nevis, which of course, as the federal minister, my aim would be to marry both islands and see where we can improve on St. Kitts with the various progress we have made here on Nevis, and vice versa, because I'm sure there are things that are working well on St. Kitts.
One issue that has been highlighted over the years is the lack of storage capacity for water on both islands to assist during the dry season.
So if storage needs to be done in terms of erecting the necessary storage tanks in various areas, then we'll have to invest in those areas to ensure that the farmers are receiving adequate supply of water. Water is there beneath the earth. We just have to extract it and store it and then distribute it. So that would have to be a major part of our plans going forward, because of course, you know, we are in a dry season and the seasons are getting, or let's put it this way, we are receiving less and less rainfall. So in that regard, we have to plan differently and find ways to mitigate against these circumstances. So it therefore means that if we have to increase the storage capacity, we certainly would have to do that. But first of all, we have to locate the water and bring it to the surface so that it's available to our farmers. So storage is key, but developing whatever wells exist that needs to be developed, we have to do that as well. So we have to have a working relationship with all of the necessary ministries and departments within the Federation to ensure that we're getting results.
The Caribbean Drought and Precipitation Monitoring Network in May outlined concerns over short-term drought that can impact streams and rivers in the southern portion of the eastern chain by the end of June 2020. Prison officials have not set out a timeline on when the local penitentiaries will be reopened to the public following the closures due to COVID-19 protocols. Commissioner of Prisons Terrence James confirmed to WinFM that no decision has been made when it comes to allowing visitors to return in light of the fact that a second wave threat is imminent.
We are still under lockdown mode from since the 22nd of March. We have not opened up in terms of persons coming to visit the prison or anything like that. So we are still under the same lockdown mode, and the same protocols are being adhered to that we had in place from since our date of lockdown, the 22nd of March. I've been in contact with my counterparts, the other commissioners and superintendents in the Caribbean region, and no other prison either has been opened up for a visit. They're still in a state of lockdown, just like the prison here in St. Kitts.
The Commissioner of Prisons disclosed that no prisoners have been released under the early release initiative to combat the spread of the virus in the facility.
Their name was placed on the list to be released during the lockdown, but as I mentioned before, they had to be taken back before the court, and we know that the court was closed, and then the court has since reopened, but the other persons on the list were not taken before the court. They're still up for discussion, because the procedure has to be followed, and they will not release the other persons, but there are some persons whose name was on the list. Their time for discharge came, so we have to automatically discharge them.
In light of there being no cases in the region currently, WinFM asked James if there's still consideration of an early release.
Well, as I said before, there are names to be considered. Yeah, and the procedure has to be followed. I have to forward up that list to the Minister for National Security, who will then basically seek advice from his legal department, and then the inmate will have to be taken before the court, the High Court, as the procedure.
Following the announcement of the first case of COVID-19 in the Federation, prison officials moved quickly, along with others in the region, to have non-violent offenders released early. A list of over 31 names were leaked of those who are considered to be released. However, they must be placed before the courts before that is possible.
The National Insurance Scheme has so far received over 4,000 claims from persons who are unemployed as a direct result of COVID-19, with a payout of just over $500,000 to those affected by the pandemic. June 30th is the deadline for the submission of claims for May, and employees who have been affected and are yet to make claims are being encouraged to do so. Public Relations Officer of the National Insurance Scheme, Lisa Douglas, is appealing to affected employees to work closely with their employers to ensure the process is completed, to ensure the smooth flow of the payout process. Under this process, employers are the ones tasked with the responsibility of ensuring that claims are made on behalf of the staff.
May and June, it's time to claim for your unemployment assistance benefit. In terms of applying for the benefit, it's an electronic form that is found on the NIS website and must be completed there. So there are certain things that employees need to ensure that they provide their employer with. Your banking information is paramount, so ensure that you give your employer your bank or credit union, of course. So the name of your bank, you have to ensure that you state what type of account, whether it's a checking or a savings account. And please ensure that the information that you provide the employer with is really correct. So double check it, triple check it to ensure that when the NIS processes a claim and pays a benefit and sends it to your financial institution, that it is not returned to us because the account information is incorrect.
This is Al Jazeera.
Mike mentioned the John Bolton book there. Well, as that Supreme Court ruling was being released, Mr. Trump and his administration scrambling to react to revelations from Mr. Bolton, of course, formerly a high-level staffer inside the White House. In his usual style, Mr. Trump has been highly defensive, this time over more allegations about his dealings with foreign leaders made in a tell-all book by his former national security advisor. He's John Bolton. He quit last year. He's leaked excerpts from his book to the media. In it, he's accusing Mr. Trump of asking leaders, including the Chinese president, to help him to get re-elected on November the 3rd this year. The 577-page book is called The Room Where It Happened, and it's got the president lashing out on Twitter, calling it a compilation of lies and made-up stories just to make him look bad. He continued, saying the statements attributed to him were, quotes, pure fiction, adding that it was all about Bolton trying to get even, referring to him at the end of the tweet as a sick puppy. Alan Fisher has been following that story since it broke. He joins us from the White House. So, Alan, what's the main thrust of the book?
That Donald Trump isn't fit to do the job. John Bolton details several cases. He talks about how he was there at his side at important things like the summit in Singapore with Kim Jong-un, how he was there in Finland when he met Vladimir Putin, how he travelled to G8, G7, G20, NATO meetings, and he was always there with Donald Trump, advising him, talking to him. But he said that Donald Trump saw everything as transactional politics. What would help him get re-elected? He talked specifically about the Chinese and how he asked the Chinese president to buy a great deal of American farm produce, believing that would help secure his re-election. Now, the White House is trying to block publication of this book. They've gone to court. That's likely to be heard at some point on Friday. But that book is out. It's being sent across the country. Some are even being sent out of the country so that people can buy them Let me show you my laptop. Just last night, from a contact, I got a digital copy of the book. I'm currently reading the section about the summit in Singapore, which Donald Trump has tweeted about just in the last 20 minutes or so. He also talks about how Donald Trump would try to use Twitter to deflect from bad news, particularly one case, he says, Mohammed bin Salman, the de facto leader of Saudi Arabia. Well, Donald Trump tweeted out his support for him during the case of the Jamal Khashoggi, the journalist who was murdered in Istanbul in the Saudi consulate there. He decided to tweet out support because Ivanka Trump, his daughter, was getting a hard time because she had used private servers for political business, the exact same thing that he wanted to see Hillary Clinton jailed for. So John Bolton is doing the rounds. He's spoken to a number of newspapers. He's also doing a peak time interview on Sunday here in the United States. We saw a little snippet of that on the morning shows here in the US just in the last couple of hours. And he says Donald Trump is not fit to be US president.
You described the president as erratic, foolish, behaved irrationally, bizarrely. You can't leave him alone for a minute. He saw conspiracies behind rocks and was stunningly uninformed. He couldn't tell the difference between his personal interests and the country's interests.
I don't think he's fit for office. I don't think he has the competence to carry out the job. There really isn't any guiding principle that I was able to discern other than what's good for Donald Trump's reelection.
On DACA, by the way. What is interesting is that on one hand, Donald Trump is saying that everything in the book is lies. There are stories that have been made up to make him look bad. On the other hand, the Department of Justice has taken the case to court, say there are state secrets here, things that John Bolton should not be making public. So people are saying, is there perhaps a conflict there? Are they lies or are they secrets? Which one are they? Which makes it unlikely that the court is going to rule in favour of blocking this book, particularly as it's now out there and everywhere. But certainly John Bolton doesn't come out of this covered in glory either. You'll remember that Congress wanted to speak to him about the allegations that Donald Trump was using Ukraine to help him win re-election by investigating Joe Biden. He was given a subpoena to turn up to one of the committee hearings. He said he would only go if a judge told him he had to do it. He kept his own counsel, but at the same time he was negotiating a $2 million book deal. And that's what we're seeing now, where he says that Donald Trump often would use foreign policy as a way of gaining re-election.
Alan, thanks very much. Talk to you very soon, I'm sure. Well, for more on this, let's bring in the host of Al Jazeera's The Bottom Line. Steve Clemens is also editor-at-large for The Hill, the online political website. He joins us from Washington. Steve, welcome to the News Hour. For you, what's the one single most damaging claim here?
I think the big takeaway right now on the allegation is what your previous commenter said, is that John Bolton, who is not, a Mitt Romney, he's not a moderate Republican. He's a pugnacious nationalist, very much in the same track as Donald Trump has portrayed himself to be, real hardcore Republican, coming out and saying the man that occupies the White House right now is incompetent and should not be there. It's a remarkable moment. And I think the other dimension to this is, there are a lot of people angry at John Bolton for putting his own financial interests before testifying before the House or the Senate with regards to the impeachment inquiry. But, if he had appeared in the House and given testimony, I'm not sure the Republicans that follow these matters would necessarily have believed that filter. This is one of their heroes on the right saying these comments about President Trump, and Republicans are going to read this. And so this is going to, I think, show new cracks and fissures in what we thought was an impenetrable and an unbreakable base that Donald Trump has. That's why I think the White House is really running scared of this book.
BBC News with Sue Montgomery. President Trump has suffered a major setback after the US Supreme Court overturned his decision to cancel an Obama-era law that protects from deportation hundreds of thousands of people who entered the United States illegally as children. Gary O'Donoghue reports.
Some 700,000 young illegal migrants have taken advantage of the DACA programme since its inception in 2012. But 6 months after coming to power, Donald Trump told his then Attorney General to scrap the scheme. That decision has been mired in the courts ever since, and now the Supreme Court has said the move was arbitrary and capricious. It's a major blow to the White House, which made the removal of the so-called Dreamers a cornerstone of its hardline immigration policy.
Britain has become the latest country to pump more money into the economy in an attempt to stave off a deep recession caused by the coronavirus outbreak. The Bank of England is making available more than $120 billion of stimulus funding, but it added that the impact of the pandemic might be less severe than initially feared. Britain is abandoning the underpinnings of its existing coronavirus tracing app and switching to a new model based on technology provided by Google and App. Here's Rory Kechlin-Jones.
This contact tracing app was supposed to be a centralised system whereby the NHS actually collected some data centrally. Now, that was controversial because Apple and Google had offered countries the ability to build a different system where it would be decentralised, much less data collected centrally, much more privacy focused. The UK had said, we're not going down that path. That app's obviously run into problems. We heard yesterday that it might not be available till winter. Now we're hearing that there has been a sudden U-turn. The government is going to switch to using the Apple and Google system.
France has accused the United States of torpedoing efforts to negotiate a global digital tax just when they were approaching a deal. The finance minister, Bruno Le Maire, said the US decision to pull out of the talks was a provocation to those who wanted tech giants to pay their taxes. He added that if the Americans refused to cooperate, France would introduce its own tax, despite what he called Washington's systematic threats against its allies. Many governments argue companies like Amazon and Facebook are using complex systems to avoid paying tax in the countries where they operate, something the companies deny. 7 Syrians have filed a criminal complaint in Germany over rape and sexual abuse in detention centres in Syria. A legal advocacy group says the action is being brought in order to prosecute sexual and gender-based violence in Syrian jails as a crime against humanity. BBC News. President Trump has castigated his former National Security Advisor John Bolton, who has written memoirs with explosive accusations levelled at the president. Mr. Trump tweeted that the book was a compilation of lies and made-up stories. He accused Mr. Bolton of trying to get even, in his words, for firing him like the sick puppy he is. The head of Russia's healthcare watchdog has given notice of a big increase in the number of health workers killed by COVID-19. Alla Samolova says 489 doctors, nurses and other workers have died, up from just over 100 3 weeks ago. She said Russia had been unprepared to deal with the pandemic, but the situation was better now. Russia says it's lifted a 2-year-old ban on the popular Telegram messaging app, which the authorities haven't been able to enforce. The Kremlin's media watchdog said it was ending the restrictions because the company was now prepared to cooperate in fighting terrorism and extremism on the platform. The ban was introduced after Telegram refused to store user data and hand it over to the authorities. Britain's Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab has been criticised for suggesting the act of taking the knee is a symbol of subjugation, originating from a TV fantasy drama. Kneeling to protest against racism and police brutality was popularised in US sport. Here's Norman Smith.
The Foreign Secretary's comments prompted an almost immediate storm of criticism, not because he said he would only take the knee for the Queen and his wife, but because he said taking the knee looked to him like an act of subjugation and subordination. What added to the fury was his suggestion that its origins perhaps lay in the Game of Thrones, presumably a reference to the bending of the knee in the television programme as an act of surrender. Labour's Justice Secretary David Lammy described his comments as insulting and embarrassing.
That was the Win FM headline news, brought to you by KDP Enterprises, Caribbean Alliance, Carib Brewery, CNC Trading, The Grange.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your goods anywhere in the world. Whether your shipment is fresh, frozen, large or small, alive or hazardous, you can count on Amerijet to deliver it safe and sound. Amerijet International, by land, sea or air. We get it there. For more information, visit us online at www.amerijet.com or call us at KDP Enterprises, telephone number 466-9595.
Without limits, happy and free. The skin you're in with no apology. The one to seize the day. Grab an LLB. Live, love, be. With LLB. Live, love, be. Live, love, be. Be who you know you can be. Grab an LLB. Live, love, be. Angostura, lemon, lime and bitters. Live, love, be.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Protect your lifestyle with Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Tilly Wall with a low reputation and service for second to none. Securing you is our mission. People that you can trust, your business property, we got you covered. Motor or personal, whatever it is, we got you covered. 130 years in this business, we got you covered. For all your insurance needs, visit or call us at 465-2631 or 469-5303. Delia Walwyn, people you can trust.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts, offering 24-hour nursing, therapeutic and residential care for older adults? It's situated at Otley, 7 miles east of Vastair in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodation to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020, fax 466-8221, or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com, or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
When is the last time that you've had lunch or dinner away from home? The ambience of Sweet Cane on Port Zante provides you with that touch. Sweet Cane daily specials include burgers, wraps, soup, and tasty seafood dishes. Sweet Cane also caters for events and special parties. Call our Sweet Cane hotline at 465-4345 or 665-7628. Sweet Cane, they've got the touch.
This is your local weather forecast brought to you by Sweet Cane. Local weather forecast for St. Kitts and Nevis, valid up to 8 a.m. tomorrow, Friday 19th June. Synopsis: available moisture associated with a tropical wave could trigger some light shower activity, mainly during the morning period. However, moderate levels of Saharan dust is expected to move in later today and restrict any significant weather development. Today's weather, partly cloudy with a 40% or a moderate chance of showers. Tonight's weather, partly cloudy with a 20% or a slight chance of showers. Winds east at 13 to 28 kilometers or 7 to 15 knots. Seas 1 to 1.5 meters or 3 to 5 feet. Today's sunset 6:47 p.m. Tomorrow's sunrise 5:37 a.m. This has been your local weather. This has been your local weather forecast, valid up to 8 a.m. tomorrow. Brought to you by Sweet Cane.
When is the last time that you've had lunch or dinner away from home? The ambience of Sweet Cane on Port Zante provides you with that touch. Sweet Cane daily specials include burgers, wraps, soup, and tasty seafood dishes. Sweet Cane also caters for events and special parties. Call our Sweet Cane hotline at 465-4345 or 665-7628. Sweet Cane, they've got the touch.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
Why not stay in? Turn off the alarm clock and sleep some more on your perfect mattress from Quartz. For the widest range of mattresses from the world's best brands, the best value guaranteed. Shop today and let our sleep experts help you to decide on the best option to suit your needs. At Quartz, we don't just sell mattresses, we're offering you the best night's sleep. So, sleep in a little on your new mattress from Quartz. Quartz, bringing value home.
This is an unprecedented announcement from Horseman's. Get up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. It's Horseman's Automotive Unprecedented Sales Event happening now. Yes, for the first time ever, you get up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Yes, pay zero VAT and get up to $30,000 off on top of that. This has never been seen before. Unprecedented savings at the Unprecedented Auto Sales Event at Horseman's Automotive. Up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Let me repeat, up to $30,000 off and pay zero VAT on top of that. Don't miss it. It's unprecedented. Terms and conditions apply.
Flo's new combo plan, the people's plan. Combo new combo plan. You can call anyone, no matter which network you dey on. Just use your Flow.
I want a combo, but not for my belly. I feel me cell phone, so me call anybody. Call Mr. Man, call Granny. On the island, Flow, come boom.
Yes, there is no need for two phones no more. Cause with Flow combo plan, you're paying less for more.
Flow got a new combo plan. You can call anyone, no matter which network you dey on. Just use your Flow.
Dial star 129 number sign to activate your combo plan today.
Welcome to the second half of Voices, and hopefully we will hear from Carlisle John Baptist in Dominica. But before we do that, let's listen to Antiguan Prime Minister Gaston Brown, who is the outgoing OECS chairman. The OECS heads are meeting today, and Mr. Brown was one of those who addressed that meeting.
Our people have endured a long night of oppression. Their blood, sweat, and tears have fueled the prosperity of Europe and laid the foundation for the wealth that these nations now enjoy. Despite this, we still struggle. On the memorable words of Michael Manley, we continue to go up on a down elevator. But we must continue to press forward. The global pandemic has brought all civilization to a screeching halt. It has given nature a breathing pause and has reminded the human race of its fragility in the face of deadly microbes. It has also brought to the fore our common humanity and that we are as strong as our weakest link. Now, rich and poor, the mighty and the powerless have all been brought to a condition of humility. And I'd say that as devastating as this has been to all humanity, it has nevertheless opened the door of unprecedented opportunities for the region. And our challenge now is to be nimble enough to capitalize on those opportunities as they present themselves. I'll say here, though, definitively that this is not a time for us to cower. This is not a time for us to buckle. This is a time for us to hold hands tighter and move forward with resolution to embrace the transformational opportunities that the crisis presents. From the emergence of the pandemic, we acted decisively and with a strong degree of cohesion, and today we are all better for it. In fact, the OECS today is considered as one of the most successful regions in the world in terms of its success in containing COVID. And this success was not due because of any superior resource endowment. It was primarily as a consequence of our competence and our commitment to protect our people. And that is certainly one of the areas of success that we ought to celebrate. And it shows how we could literally deal with the most difficult of challenges when we act together. And it also emphasizes the need for a common approach in dealing with challenges. Now, as I pass the baton on to my brother Roosevelt Skerritt, and urge that as we face the next episode in this uncertain drama, that we should continue to strengthen our collective determination, as this is the only way we can survive this existential threat. There's absolutely no other way. And I just want to reassure my dear brother Roosevelt that as the outgoing chairman, you can continue to count on my support on the various threats facing the sub-region. Most recently, we have had to deal with the issue of the downgrading of the Eastern Caribbean Civil Aviation Authority to Category 2. Perhaps it was avoidable if there was greater level of collaboration and cooperation at the official level. But I think as heads, we now have an obligation to pay greater attention to make sure that the level of commitment of functional cooperation or for functional cooperation is not just at the level of the heads, but to make sure that officials understand that commitment. And to also understand too that in this particular instance, the non-compliance of a single member state makes us all non-compliant. So notwithstanding whatever differences officials may have at the country level, they must understand that their inaction would have consequences for the entire region. And they need to act, they need to put aside their differences, even concerns that they may have with ECHO. They now need to understand that they are literally letting down the region when they become indifferent and when they fail to act with alacrity. So I'm saying this in the context that notwithstanding the fact that the region has been downgraded, we have made a significant amount of progress in co-opting the assistance of the FAA as well as ICAO. And what is necessary now to ensure that we resume Category 1 status is for the officials to act quickly and to do so recognizing that the success of one is a success of all, and that the failure of one is a failure of all. And again, I just want to signal my personal commitment in ensuring that even though I'm not the the current chairman, that I will continue to make my efforts available to push all of the countries, even my colleague heads, to make sure that they get the officials to act so that we can restore our Category 1 status. So that is a challenge that I'm quite sure will resolve, and that maybe within a matter of months, hopefully within this current year, that we can resume Category 1 status. I'm sure we have the ability so to do. What is required is a full commitment of all, especially the officials who are tasked with the responsibility of ensuring that these identified gaps, that they're remedied. Now, we have made some significant progress during my tenure as chairman, and I would like to highlight at least one, and that is certainly the heightened profile of the OECS Assembly as a parliamentary forum for building and maintaining consensus on the basis of the regional integration agenda. Our last meeting of the Assembly, which was pre-COVID, was actually live streamed, and we saw an unprecedented viewership in excess of 150,000 persons. So let us not underestimate the importance of this institution in terms of keeping the community, that is OECS community, informed, and as an area to build consensus, because clearly the people of the region, they have an interest in the parliament and the work of the parliament. And I want to implore our heads to make themselves available to be part of the meetings that we may have from time to time. And recognizing that we are in a crisis presently with COVID, which may prevent us from meeting physically, there's nothing stopping us from having a virtual parliamentary meeting. So again, I'd want officials within the OECS to plan, a virtual meeting of the parliament, the OECS parliament, until such time as we can meet physically. Now, this breadth of public engagement, I would like to see broaden and deepen, and clearly to use Antigua and Barbuda, continue to use Antigua and Barbuda as a seat of the Assembly, and certainly we are committed to make sure that the Assembly grow in status. Now, agility and responsiveness have become the distinguishing features of the OECS as a community and as an organization. And we show our best when confronted by crisis. From the early stages of the pandemic, we would have seen the collective wisdom of our governments, which would have enabled us to be on top of the crisis. And as I said before, we are now a celebrated region in terms of our success. Now, in such times, we must always maintain our collective resolve. And I must express my deep appreciation to all of our heads who, without exception, took leads in areas of comparative competence in guiding our response. And I hope that will be a template for the way forward. Now, it is because of this that on the international front, we were able to secure recognition of the exponential effects of the pandemic on small island developing states. At the level of the Commission, I must commend the doggedness of the institution in sourcing support, securing much needed equipment and supplies through our pooled procurement, and especially the COVID relief supplies that we would have had during that period. Now, I wish to place on record our appreciation for the work done by the Commission in securing for each country from the International Atomic Energy Association to RT-PCR machines, which are among the most sophisticated and reliable testing equipment that are available. And they have gotten us testing kits as well, and certain personal protective equipment. And my understanding is that the donations to each country would have been valued in excess of 100,000 euros. Antigua and Barbuda and St. Kitts and Nevis have already received their shipments, and the others are in transit. That capacity has been recognized because the OECS TPS is the procurement kernel of the regional procurement effort through CDMO. These achievements are emblematic of the potential and certainly the power of working together. And I'm honored to certainly pass on the baton to a leader who is battle tried and tested and who has become the symbol of his country's resilience. We would have seen the difficulties that Dominica endured as a result of 2 hurricanes that decimated the country, and they have rebounded well thanks to the effective leadership of Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit. And clearly he's coming at a time now to lead us within the OECS sub-region, having been battle ready from prior crises. So dealing with this COVID crisis obviously would not be very difficult, and we look forward to his effective leadership. And again, in closing, I just want to pledge my personal support, the support of my administration in ensuring that as a region, we remain a successful region, and to assist in the heavy lifting, especially during this period of crisis.
And that, of course, was the Antigua and Barbuda Prime Minister Gaston Brown speaking in his capacity as the outgoing OECS chairman. The OECS leaders are meeting today. Mr. Brown mentioned things like the downgrading of the Eastern Caribbean Civil Aviation Authority and what he described as the heightened progress during his tenure of the OECS Assembly. Joining us from Roseau is Carlisle John Baptist. Carlisle? Hi, Carlisle? Okay, we don't seem to have Carlisle at the moment, but the OECS leaders are having a virtual meeting today and discussing a whole set of issues and basically discussing a whole range of matters. The incoming chairman is Prime Minister Skerrit, Roosevelt Skerrit of Dominica, and he also spoke at the meeting, as did the Director General Didacus Jules. And today actually is OECS Day. The 18th of June every year is observed as OECS Day. It always seems low-key, but at least the leaders make it a very important day. They have their meeting on that day and take certain decisions that they hope will strengthen the integration process in the OECS region. We are still hoping to get Carlisle John Baptist from Roseau for him to give us an update on the situation there as soon as we get him. In fact, Carlisle, are you with us?
Yes, Ken, I'm with you. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. And what's happening in Dominica? Can you tell us what are the big issues?
Well, let me say good afternoon to you, Ken, and good afternoon to your listeners of Win FM.
Hi.
What can I say? Okay.
Well, there's an election petition case, Carlisle. Can you start with that?
Excuse me?
There's an election petition case. Can you start with that?
Yes, well, that is what I'm starting with, actually.
Okay.
They had the election petition case coming up today. They had the preliminary hearing today, more or less housekeeping, and the petition judge, Justice Eddie Ventures, that's him, he is the judge assigned to hear the matter. So the petition judge, Justice Eddie Ventures, is the one assigned to hear the matter. Today he listened to the different sides, the petitioners, and of course the respondents, and they have set July 7th as the date to hear the substantive matter to strike out. The petitioners, they've asked the court to strike out the elections petition filed by the opposition United Workers' Party, and that will be heard, the substantive matter will be heard on July 7th. Of course, that is via Zoom. So lawyers for both parties, they've asked to do certain housekeeping, and July 7th is the date set for that matter.
Okay, can you give us some more information in terms of who brought the petition, why, and what the others are saying?
Well, the petitions were brought by the opposition United Workers' Party. They are saying that they are challenging the results of the elections in 10 constituencies in Dominica. And one of the constituencies, a very interesting constituency that they've held for a number of years, is that the constituency of Roseau Central, which was won by the wife of the Prime Minister, Melissa Skerrit. They are also saying that she holds dual citizenship, and that at the time of contesting the election, that she was the holder of a Canadian passport. And by virtue of that, they're saying that she ought not to have been a candidate in the December elections. Other constituencies that I know that they are contesting also, that they are challenging, that is, they're challenging the constituency of La Plaine, the Roseau Valley, the Roseau South, and Wesley also. And I don't remember all the other 10 or the rest offhand, but these are some of the constituencies that they are challenging.
So that's almost kind of like half of the constituencies, 10 out of 21. How are people,
that is very correct.
How are people looking at that matter? Do they think it's a waste of time, or do they think there's merit in it and things could change?
Those for the government side think it is a waste of time, and that is why the lawyers for the government side are asking that it be struck off. Looking at it from even me as a layman on the street, even if, say, the court would possibly rule that a few of the constituencies would probably go back to the polls. To me, that, because remember the election results are 18-3, I do not think that would be enough to overturn the results of the December 2019 general election in favor at all of the United Workers' Party.
Okay. You have another interesting development in terms of an armed robbery in which somebody was actually killed, Khalil.
That is very correct. 2 days ago, 3 masked armed robbers went to the Kalinago territory and they held up a truck and they beat up one gentleman who was subsequently hospitalized at gunpoint. Interesting to note that the driver of that vehicle was the father of one of the robbers. So there were 3 of them. The driver is the father who was shot by the police and killed. And then you had his son who went by the name of Javid Alfred. The father was named Davidson Alfred from Granby, and another individual, Chesley Anselm. They have the 2 others who were on the run. They have subsequently surrendered to the police because there was a bulletin out for their arrest by the police. They have subsequently surrendered to the police and are presently in police custody being questioned. One of them, that is Javid Alfred, just about a month ago, was granted bail in the amount of $30,000 for armed robbery again. So it's interesting to know that he was on bail while he committed this second offense.
In terms of the COVID-19 situation, what sort of regulations are in place, restrictions? Is there a state of emergency, for example?
It still is in effect. In fact, the curfew starts from 10 in the night. It started on Monday from 10 in the night. Before that, it was starting from 8 o'clock in the evening. So it starts from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. And right now, we have the bars can now open. We have the gyms are now allowed to open, of course, with social distancing. And the restaurants can have sitting accommodation with, again, the necessary sanitization. And we have a few other areas, yes, that is like the gaming industry. We have Mapao and we have the Blast, that is the Lotto, Mapao, and Blast. They are also allowed to open to do the necessary gaming, that is the gaming industry in Dominica. They are now open. So it starts from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. And I think slowly but surely things are getting back to normal. Government institutions, they have been asked to remain open as usual, except though I must say that the banking industry, that is the credit union and the banks, they are not operating as usual. We still have to go through a lot of channel to get through the banks by appointment. The credit unions, the doors are shut, and you have to basically queue up, line up to get into those institutions.
In terms of this situation as it is with COVID and regulations in place, to what extent has that curbed crime in Dominica? Was that robbery a one-off, or is there a lot of crime happening?
Nice question, Ken, because actually over the weekend in the southern community of Point Michelle, the credit union there, which is a branch of the National Cooperative Credit Union, was burglarized. Early hours of Sunday morning, intruders attempted to enter. They broke the front door. They were not able to pass through the second door. So the police, they were called in. So we have been seeing a spate of robberies in the country. There was one about 2 weeks ago. A truck was held up. So we have been seeing that. Also, another credit union on the west coast of the island was also held up. So that situation, that mass situation, seems to be a cause for concern. Some people are using it to their great advantage for criminal enterprises.
Just to mention that the first one you mentioned with the 3 masked robbers in the Kalinago territory, that is the Carib territory. The indigenous people, they've changed the name back to the original name, so we call it Kalinago, but just so our listeners can know, it's the Carib territory.
Thank you.
And what about, Kali, the question of the borders of Dominica? When are they likely to be opened?
It remains closed. The Prime Minister on Monday stated that he intends to look at that hopefully in the middle of July. In fact, he took over the chairmanship, I think, of the OECS today.
Today he did,
yes. This is going to be top on his agenda in discussions with the other heads of government. So he has said that this is priority for him. In the meantime, our borders remain closed unless if it is citizens of Dominica that they have chartered flights, like students, they are returning home and they are brought in. We have also those on the cruise lines. They are being brought in on island and they have to be quarantined. So right now we have no active persons with COVID-19 cases in Dominica. However, we have, I think, well over 150 persons in quarantine because a number of flights came in with students who are studying overseas and they have been placed in quarantine.
So it feels like the border won't be open before mid-July.
It feels that way.
What about the question of people smuggling, because you have Dominica directly between Guadeloupe and Martinique, and it is known that some people do that kind of ply, that kind of trade.
That is a situation that the law enforcement officers are grappling with. They've made several arrests, and they have been calling on people to stop that, and those who are aware of people coming in to please inform the police because it is cause for concern. But this is ongoing right through.
Okay, just want to alert our callers that you can call in if you have issues to deal with or if you have any comments to make. We did have a whole program for the first half looking at Nevis, looking at St. Kitts and the elections. If you have a call, do call us. We will accommodate you. But Kali, let's continue while we wait for calls. The hurricane season, Dominica suffered tremendously in 2017 from Irma and Maria. How much preparation is being done at this stage? Because we are in the hurricane season, which started on the 1st of June.
The National Emergency Response Unit, headed by the Prime Minister, they have met. I had an interview with the chairperson of the Shelter Committee of NIPO, and he did indicate to me that he thinks that Dominica is much more prepared than the last time, given the fact that a number of houses have been constructed and they are in a much better shape, and persons who have set up their houses or refurbished their houses, retrofitted their houses, they are in a much better condition. But he has sounded the alarm that there are a number of people still, I think about 115 or thereabout, still in hurricane shelters after Hurricane Maria. And they seem not to want to leave. One area he pointed out was the community of Bath Estate, where we have a number of people in the community center, and that community center is used multifaceted, and the people are asking for the use of that community center, and they are not getting that. They've issued letters to people asking them to move. Another situation that they are confronted with is that they were paying rent for a number of people over the last 3 years. And some of the people, they are gainfully employed, and government has issued letters effective 30th of January stating that those persons who are gainfully employed, government will no longer be paying house rent for them. And a lot of people are talking about that. Some are saying that it is unfair. But of course, I mean, if you have the means of paying your rent, government is saying that, look, why should we be paying house rent for you when you have the capacity to pay house rent? Let us do it for other people who do not have the capacity to pay house rent.
What about the recovery of houses, building them back, and so on? Okay, Carla, I will hold that question for a minute and go to the telephone. We have a caller. Hello.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. Go ahead, please.
Hi, this is Pastor Eric Maynard speaking. I'm calling from Nevis.
Hi, go right ahead.
And I'm calling in connection with the inauguration service on ceremony on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
I was there, and the Reverend Hilton Joseph was asked to pray the intercessory prayer and prayers of blessing for the new government. And he prayed a prayer which I think was very eloquent. And it reminded me of a prayer that the Prime Minister of Jamaica prayed, asking God to forgive Jamaica for its sins. And I thought that it was very well done. But I was surprised when I came home that I heard that people were saying, if I heard that prayer. I said, yeah, what was wrong with it? So I thought it was very, very eloquent. I said, well, I think you would have done a better job. I said, no, I could not have done a better job, and I don't think that anyone could have done a job like this. But then, since then, I've been hearing a lot of things about the prayer. What I want people to understand is that he was asked to pray intercessory prayer. Intercessory, to intercede on behalf of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis and the new government. And I would hope that the people would appreciate what he said. And I don't think that anybody could have done a better job. I think he did a great job. And I don't think that he was accusing anyone of bribery or anything. He prayed in general that God forgive if there was bribery. He didn't use my exact words, but I'm saying in substance, that's what I gathered. And I thought that it was very eloquent, very well done, until I heard these and people asking me about it. And I said that I don't see anything wrong with what he said. That is what he was asked to do. And I think that the misunderstanding is that people do not understand the word intercessory. He was interceding on behalf of the government and the people of Nevis, or St. Kitts, the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. I do not know the pastor. I've never heard of him. And I did not expect him to call in to defend himself. But I really thought that as a fellow pastor, and one who was misunderstood back in 2012 when when I was on this particular station, misunderstood what I was saying, I felt that someone needed to stand in his defense. And I felt that the Lord laid it upon my heart to call in and defend the pastor because he didn't do anything wrong. And he was not accusing the government of bribery or, I forget some of the other things that they're saying, accuse him of. He was just asking God to forgive if there was bribery, if there was injustice. Lord, forgive us. And I think that we really need to apologize to that pastor. I wish I had his number. I would like to give him a call because I hope he's not discouraged, and I hope that he's not offended by the comments that are being made. But I thought that
do
it
you
was
think,
very unjust.
Pastor, do you think because it's a political season, or it was a political season at the time, people may have been a bit sensitive and thought he was actually directing his comments at particular persons or particular groups?
Yes, I think so. Because like I told you, back in 2012, maybe you would not know about it, but how could I forget his name? The owner of the station here.
Clive Bacchus, you mean?
Clive Bacchus. He would know what the situation was back in 2012, really. And people misunderstood me. And they thought that I was taking side. And I was very happy when my grandson told me yesterday that, Granddaddy, people are misunderstanding you, and they're saying that you should not have gone. But I know you. And whichever government is in office, you are with them and you pray for them. When CCM is in office, I get close to the premier. When Labour is in office, I pray from the pulpit. When NRP is in office here in Nevis, I get close to Mr. Parry and I pray for them. And people call me a swing vote and all kind of names. But my point, and what I want people of St. Kitts and Nevis to understand, when the elections are over and the people have spoken, let's get together and work together. And my aim and my desire really over the years was to get the two parties to work together after the elections are over. Because if one side tear down when their party is out of office, and then the party get back in office and the other side tear down, where are we going to get? So we should build together after the elections are over rather than having this constant fight for 5 years. And then when 5 years is up, then you go back at it and you determine who is going to be the next government. And after the electorate has spoken, let's work together. And the reason why I call really, I feel for Pastor Joseph because these criticisms have been leveled against me. For example, Pastor said, you should not have gone. My question is, if the other party was in office and they invite me over, what would you say? Should I have gone? If Labour had won, and they invite me to be a part of it, which I was a part of the service on Sunday, I would have gone. It doesn't matter to me which one is in office.
Okay, so your final point is that as far as you're concerned, the message was on point?
Sure, because that's what he was asked to do, intercessory prayer, and he was not accusing and the blessings for the new government. He was right on target, and he was right on point, and I want to believe that Miss Henry is listening. I hope she probably would know him, and tell him that a pastor in Nevis complimenting you for a job well done, because I don't know Joseph, and I don't think that anybody could have done a better job than what he did of what was asked of him. I was asked to read a passage, and I read the passage, and I cannot comment on it because that's all I was asked to do.
Okay,
and
Pastor.
He was asked to pray the intercessory prayer, so he did that.
All right, Pastor. Thank you very much for that clarification, and thanks for calling.
You're welcome.
Okay. Do we still have you there, Carlisle?
Yes, Ken, I'm
Okay,
still there.
sorry about that. We had to take this call. I was about to ask you before the call, though, almost 3 years later, are there still houses covered with tarpaulin in Dominica?
A lot, yes. We still have that. I know you see them, and I know of people still on the tarpaulin as we speak at this point in time.
All right. Hold on again, Carlisle. If you can, just going to take another call. Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. Go right ahead, please. You're with us.
I talked with the pastor. I was a second question, but I talked with the pastor. I don't think the pastor was talking to the government. He's talking in general. Because when you go to a funeral, the pastor do not preach for the dead. He preach for the living. So I think in general, the pastor was preaching for everyone. Anyway, my question is to the gentleman from Dominica. Is there anyone still living in the river? I listen off air.
You heard that, Carlisle?
I did not hear.
She's
her
asking
question.
if there's anybody still living in the river.
Yes, we in fact, I just did a story last week for the Sun newspaper, one of the newspapers in Dominica, where we still have people living in those danger areas next to the river, next to the ravines. And we do not have the necessary legislation to force the people out, and what we call mandatory evacuation. And that was a concern expressed to me by the chairman of the shelter committee of NIPO, that is Glenroy Tousse.
And what is being done about it?
Well, like he said, you can only advise people, and people need to know that they need to take the necessary action, the necessary precaution to safeguard themselves, their families, life, and property. And if people refuse, and he also went back to the situation where 3 years ago, the situation in the southern community of Point Michel, where persons had gone to the family who lost 9 and went to them and said to them, look, where you all are living is not safe. And he said to me, you know what they said? They said they survived Tropical Storm Erica there. It was going to be okay. They were going to be okay. And we know the end result of that. You cannot force people. You can only advise them. We do not have mandatory legislation in Dominica, and that is an issue.
Okay, let's get back to the telephone. Carlisle, stay with us still, please. Hello? Hello? Hi, good afternoon. Hello? Hello? Okay. Hello, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, my friend. How are you doing?
Doing well. Go right ahead, please.
Yes, I want to say good afternoon to the Dominican brother there.
Good afternoon. Good
I'm
afternoon.
going to start by sending a greeting to Irma Norma Joseph. She is the president of the Association of Persons with Disabilities in Dominica. And I can't remember the man's name, but he was a statistician. He's now blind, so the gentleman might know him. So I go to say hello
Yes,
to
I
them.
do.
Visit
I
them
do
from
know him.
our association in St. Kitts and Sylvie and Henry in particular. Now, what is the state of education now in Dominica? Are you doing distant teaching, or what exactly? Are the children going back to school? Are they in school? What is the present situation?
Did you hear the
present
question,
situation,
Carlisle?
right? Yes, the present situation in Dominica is that the schools remain closed, and we have the online Google teaching. Just Monday, teachers were asked to report to all the various schools on island. And that is posing a challenge because the internet system is giving a lot of problems. But before that, teachers were doing their work at home and sending work to students. I met a primary school teacher today in the capital city, Roseau, and she told me the reason why she's in Roseau is because she is frustrated. She decided to just take a walk because all her teachers are at school and the internet is giving them problems. It is all teachers are at school, and the work that they have to send to the students, it is not going through because of the online situation and the internet issue. Whereas before that, some teachers were at home and they were doing what they had to do. But government has asked that all teachers report to school and do the necessary work at home. And yes, I do know the president of the Association of Disabled People. That's my schoolmate, Raymond. And the other gentleman that is the statistician who's married to him, that's Mr. Murphy. Yes, I do know him also.
Okay, Miss Henry. All right. Yes, we do have another caller. Okay. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yes. Good afternoon.
Hi.
First of all, with regards to pastors' intercessional prayer,
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody listening would have some version of it, and I think the best thing is to look at the reaction of those present. I remember a similar thing happened when I think it was Pastor Byron at the Nevis Island Assembly elections. I think it was around election time then, made a similar plea. And, I think it was hard hitting. I really think, in my opinion, it was intended for the new leaders' ears, because the pastor, I'm sure, lived here and knew and heard things that were going on, and therefore tailored his prayer to suit.
I can hear your critics. I can hear your critics saying you would think that, wouldn't you?
As what?
I said I can hear your critics saying you would think that.
Yes, yeah, I can hear them, but that's all right. But it was instructive as one of the responses to the COVID crisis, Premier Brantley gave up one of his salaries. This suggests that even he had some discomfort with it, right? And it would be interesting to see if after COVID, post-COVID, that he resumes it. Secondly, I don't understand. Statisticians are supposed to be logical thinkers, yet we find them, or some appearing to justify things like bribery and other wrongdoing on the basis that, well, they all do it, or somebody else did it too. You know, I would have thought the emphasis would be placed on making sure that the wrongdoing does not happen again in the future. Okay? And you realize that even the candidates and parties, even on the government side, who control the elections, are contesting results based on irregularities. Right? So shouldn't the focus be on holding those responsible accountable and make sure that it doesn't happen again? Because I really shudder to think what 2025 would look like. And a third observation, when follow-ups like what happened with the East Caribbean Currency Civil Aviation Authority happens, who is held accountable? I mean, Gaston Brown seemed hesitant to name and shame. So something like this, which affects aviation in the region, is just allowed to slide without repercussions, right?
Can I just respond very quickly?
Uh-huh.
From what I understand, the Civil Aviation Authority has its role to play. Some of the things comes under its portfolio, and the governments have a role to play as well in terms of legislation. So it's not a carte blanche in terms of, I think some may have been done on both sides and maybe some not done on the other sides. But for me, the issue is not blaming, the issue is trying to correct it, really and truly.
Exactly. But usually you don't have a course correction unless somebody is held accountable. A mention was made of the OECS Parliament. It's high time that it is reorganized to become more than just a figurehead. You know, something like this, what we were just talking about.
But did you hear what...
should have been imposed on the leaders of individual countries who messed up.
Did you hear what Mr. Brown said? Did you hear what Mr. Brown said? He was considering it a fillip in his heart that, you know, there was a heightened progress during his tenure of the OECS Assembly. The Assembly was supposed to have been meeting pretty regularly.
Yeah.
That hasn't happened. And it's difficult because you have OECS countries who have to travel to Antigua where the headquarters is, and maybe the logistics are a little difficult.
You realize that's not an excuse now because they've been having meetings even though they can't travel?
True.
Yeah.
True, but that was forced on them. Maybe you should make the suggestion that, look, you guys can do this by, Zoom or whatever.
Yeah. I don't think they'd like to miss the per diems and the fancy hotels and that kind of thing. But anyway, there's just one final note that I wanted to make on just conclude the election.
Okay.
The electorate generally are fickle, and it's amazing that the issues that came to the fore in the 2015 elections were just ignored by the electorate this time around. I mean, the issues of corruption and governance and nepotism and the like have all been exacerbated now. I mean, take nepotism, for instance. Nowhere else in the Caribbean would you find what is accepted here, accepted in any democratic, tolerated in any democratic country in the region.
But this is still
the COVID situation, I think, scared a lot of people into voting bread and butter issues because they realize tough times are ahead. And, things are uncertain, they're out of a job and that kind of thing.
But let me interject. This is still just an allegation. I don't think we have any case of anybody having taken anybody to the court for nepotism.
No. You don't. It isn't a case of taking anybody to court for nepotism. No.
But if it is happening, and you have evidence, you can move on it.
Regulations against it. Have penalties without having to take people to court. I'm saying, and I'll challenge you, I'll challenge you to name me one other country democratic country in the region that has this level of family members placed in strategic positions. It's not even working with government, placed in strategic positions in the financial, the judicial, the economic, all these fields. The law enforcement, you cannot name me one.
Well, if it is so evident here, and you have the evidence, take it to court.
No. That's what I'm saying. And the program it's not a matter of taking to court, right? Integrity commissions, for instance, don't necessarily have to take something to court. They only have to make pronouncements on after investigation, right? When things fail you in your face, you don't have to take it to court. And if it's court you want, for instance, how do you look at the fact that court has pronounced on the cases that two of the candidates in the last election had, concerning misappropriation? Okay? Of course, you see, that's what I'm getting at. In the final analysis, it depends on the character and so on of the candidates. Okay? But what I'm saying, my point was that all those things were ignored, I think, because of the intercession or intervention of COVID-19, and things became not as clear-cut as before. And so this election was definitely one for the history books, and it just seemed that we're going backwards rather than forward in terms of probity in our campaigns and elections. And, I just hope that 2025 will be different.
Okay, good observation. Okay. Thank you very much. We're going to leave the last question for you, Carlisle. You still with us?
I'm still there, Ken.
Right. I wanted to ask you about a particular development in Dominica. The island's government has been saying it wants the country to be the most resilient country, become the most resilient country in the world, the first one. Now, there's an organization called CREED, which was assisting the government to that. The two top officials of CREED have resigned. It has been confirmed that they have resigned, and I think the suggestion was they were not getting the kind of cooperation required. For example, if you want to make a country resilient and you're building houses, you have to build them in a certain way. I got the impression that the CREED officials were saying they were not getting the kind of cooperation they needed from the various ministries and other agencies involved in that matter. Can you shed a bit of light on that? You have about 2 minutes.
That is very correct. We had the main person, Pet Badwill, and another individual, I don't recall his name right away, but he resigned in April. Badwill's resignation takes effect the 30th of this month. The cabinet secretary confirmed that. However, he did say that both resignations will not adversely affect the organization and the work of CREED. But we are not seeing anything from CREED. We are not hearing anything from CREED. We've not heard anything from CREED. They seem to be just a name. And contrary to what government has said, that, look, we're setting up CREED and we want to be the first, whatever it is, but we're not hearing anything from CREED. And so people are concerned. People are saying these are high-profile paying people in high-profile jobs, huge salaries, and we are not getting the value for money. But what I got from an interview that I had recently is that those people, they are not satisfied. They didn't say that in a nutshell, but they are not happy with the way government is handling that whole CREED situation. And so they've decided that as professionals, they would not want to be part of such an organization where government is not listening to them as professionals. And so they've opted to resign their positions.
Okay, you have to keep your eye on that one, Carlisle. Thank you very much, man, for joining us this afternoon and sharing some
You're welcome.
Well-needed information. Thanks a lot again.
Take care. Bless you.
All right. Okay, so you have been listening to Voices here. We've come to the end of the program. Thanks for listening, and thanks in particular for the people who called in.
WINN is 98.9. 98.9 is Win FM.
To our guests as well, we had Steve Manners, and we had This and That, Keith Scarborough, We did welcome the input that they made. There will be another Voices program tomorrow with another host. I'm Ken Richards. Thank you very much.
Why not stay in? Turn off the alarm clock and sleep some more on your perfect mattress from Quartz. For the